Hello, welcome back for chapter 12 of Bloodleaf. Chapter 12 begins on page 110. It is to my great discredit that I slept so peacefully, alone in my tiny room at the inn. For those hours, with food in my belly and a pillow beneath my head, I forgot about everything. Kellen, Conrad, my mother. I even forgot the feel of Taurus's knife at my throat and the fathomless darkness of the wood. When I finally woke in the late afternoon, I was pleased to find that a basin of water had been laid out for me, and I knelt with reverential gratitude at the lavender-scented pool. The water was cool and wonderful. I scrubbed my skin pink and lathered at my hair with a chunk of homemade soap that smelled of mint and vanilla and rosemary. After I was dressed, I assessed the few belongings I'd brought with me, stashed in my pockets and bodice and the pack from Falada's saddle. I took inventory. 1 bracelet, broken clasp. Charms, a ruby firebird, a sapphire-tailed mermaid, and a diamond and opal winged horse. A blood-stained square of silk fabric, 2 drops dark and copper red, a third so faded it was almost imperceptible. The linen parcel that contained my incomplete wedding dress, and then a vial of blood on a cord, supposedly derived from Kale, the founder himself. The last thing I removed from the bag was a bundle of gold-trimmed cobalt, Kellen's cloak. I rubbed the fabric between my fingers. It smelled like him, like summer sweet grass and wind-swept hills and the sun setting against a wide, dusky sky. I spent the better part of an hour furiously scrubbing it clean of the bloodstains, as if the effort could also erase my memory of how they got there. Soon the water was tinged brown, and my hands, as well as my heart, were cracked and raw. I took the rest of the afternoon to collect myself and gather my things, numbly placing them one by one into the safe darkness of the pack. Then I made myself stand and face my reflection in the room's cloudy mirror, letting my breath out slowly as I relaxed my features into well-practiced composure. In negotiations, my father used to say, emotions were best left in check, or they could be used to your disadvantage. When I saw Zan again, my face would be as blank and unreadable as a new piece of parchment. Before I went down to retrieve Falada and leave the sanctuary of the inn, I removed the Firebird charm from the bracelet. I had no intention of selling Falada to Zan, but he had helped me, and I couldn't let such a debt go unpaid. I owed too much to too many, and the weight of my dues sat heavy on my shoulders. Better to not add to the sum. The interior of the stable was dark, save for thin threads of sunlight coming through the slats of the roof, and the light from the door. It smelled of damp hay and old leather, so much like Kellen's stable at Greythorn that I had to swallow hard to rid myself of the lump forming again in my throat. I went from stall to stall, listening to the horses softly nicker at my passing. I came to the end of the stable. Then I pivoted on my heel and walked the length of the building again. Falada was gone. When I heard the crunch of footsteps on the gravel, I didn't have to turn to look to know who it was. You took her. It wasn't a question. Zan said, I don't expect you to understand. I understand that you saw her, you wanted her, and then you took her. Where is she? Sooner or later I'll find her, and you won't find her, he said. Please know that she's safe and secure in my care. Here, I've got your payment ready. I think you'll find it very generous. More than enough to establish yourself in Aklava, secure permanent lodging, pay for food and expenses while you find suitable employment. It should last you for a couple of months at least, maybe several if you're frugal. He held out a leather purse. I don't want it, I said. You need it. Ignoring the coin pouch, I took his other hand and thrust the Firebird charm in it. What's this? Payment for the room and the food. I pushed past him, out of the stable and into the inn courtyard. He grabbed my elbow. I can't take this, he said. I looked from the Firebird to his face. The likeness to Simon was even more obvious in the daylight. You'll have to. I shook his hand from my arm. This way there can be no argument that what you've done was some kind of transaction. You stole Falada. Remember that when you put on your silken finery and parade around on her back so all your friends can stand in awe at your great fortune." There was a bitter edge in my words. To myself, I muttered, "I was wrong to trust you. You're nothing like your father." Zan's eyes narrowed. "And what do you think you know about my father?" "You're Simon Silvis's son. You wear the same signet. And how else would you have such close access to the prince that he'd provide you with stacks of blood-marked invitations to sell in the camps? You're his cousin." I lifted my chin. "You look exactly like Simon, too. That's where the similarities end, though. He was kind, and you're a bastard." "You met him? When? Wait!" I had already exited the courtyard and was trying to disappear into the din on the street, just like I'd so often done back in Renault. But Zan was not deterred. "Emily," he called, "would you just stop?" I did stop, but not because he told me to. Nathaniel stepped out in front of me, as impassable as Aklev's wall. His arms were crossed in front of him like a mother about to reprimand a child, but his dour expression wasn't directed at me. He was looking at Zan. Zan said breathlessly, "She knows my father." "She what?" "Simon." "Simon, your father." He cleared his throat. "Okay, how?" "She met him in Renault before coming here." To me, Zan said, "Please, Emily, you have to tell us how he is. We've heard all kinds of rumors." I'd made a mistake. I never should have said anything. It was a breadcrumb, small and seemingly insignificant, but if I dropped too many, Taurus could follow them right back to me, and then he could finish what he'd started before the Harbinger intervened. She was here now, too, standing still among the tumult of the market. With my attention on her, she turned and walked away, toward the castle and the jutting tower behind it. "Well," Zan was asking, "what do you know about Simon Silvis?" I shook myself, coming back into the moment. "Nothing. I know nothing." "We need to find another place to have this conversation," he told Nathaniel. "Pick her up if you have to." Nathaniel moved in, but won my nastiest glare. "Don't even try," I warned. They herded me to a side street without any prying eyes, and Nathaniel went to stand watch while Zan questioned me, pacing in front of me while I leaned, arms folded, against the brick. "It's been several weeks since we've heard from him," he said. "Simon. My father, as you so cleverly deduced. He was supposed to send word when he arrived in Renault. He didn't, or at least he hasn't yet, and now we've been getting all sorts of troubling reports of political unrest." Frostily, I replied, "Tell me where Falada is, and I will divulge everything you want to know." "She's safe, and now she'll remain safe. She's in my protection." It's funny how often when someone says they want to protect you, they actually mean they want to control you. It must be terrible, having people care about your well-being. I'm being held against my will in an empty alley of a heathen city. Obviously, that's not a problem anymore. Heathen city. Zan rubbed the spot just below his lip. Because Renault is so civilized, right? If someone so much as breathes the wrong way, you just kill him. It's all very organized, I'm told. He saw my expression darken. "Oh, that hits close to home, doesn't it?" "Let me go. I'm not going to tell you anything." But I was cut off mid-sentence by the deep clang of a bell, not far away. Zan gave a start, and when the bell tolled again, Nathaniel raced toward us from around the corner. "Forest Gate," he said. Zan replied, "I know." He swore. "Is that supposed to mean something?" I asked. "The bell at the gate tolls for only two reasons. An army is approaching, or there's royalty coming." Ah, it seemed as if Taurus, Lisette, and Conrad had finally arrived. Nathaniel asked, "What about the king?" "He's having one of his parties at the Stein and Flagon tonight. Find one of the captains. They'll retrieve him." Nathaniel was already sprinting away when Zan took me by the arm. "Come on." We were closer to the second gate than I imagined. 2 quick turns and we were out among a gathering crowd. Zan and I found a place to stand along the edge of the road next to a line of thorny hedges, waiting like spectators at a spring parade. The road was a main highway, an unbroken stretch that began beneath this gate and ran to the steps at the castle entrance. Lights had begun to go on in the windows above me, and it wasn't long before people were pouring from their houses to see what the noise was about. Beneath the gate, which bore the marble likenesses of three towering women, the portcullis was raised, and three figures, quite small in the distance, stepped forward onto the border, all holding one of Simon's stolen invitations ahead of them. It went much faster for them than it seemed to have gone for me. A red flash that turned to blue and then disappeared, and they were all inside, panting and heaving, but otherwise no worse for wear. I strained to get a better look at the last little figure on the left, his hair shining like burnished gold. I was overcome with anxious fear. Was Conrad all right? Was he hurt? Did the passage across the wall make him sick? Was he scared? 2 horses carrying men in formal guards' uniforms came thundering down the road from the castle, and the crowd split to receive them. Good, Zan said under his breath. Nathaniel got to the captain in time. I stared at him for a second. In my worry about Conrad, I'd almost forgotten he was there. When the riders reached the gate, the tolling bell stopped its mournful call, and an expectant hush settled over the uneasy city. The 2 guards, having spoken to the gatekeeper, turned and reined their horses into an escort position as the 3 travelers remounted their own horses, the man on one and the girl and child on the other. All of them were bedraggled and stained with the marks of hard travel. "Make way!" the castle riders called. "Make way for the Princess of Renault." I shuddered, feeling suddenly vulnerable, exposed. Lisette, Taurus, and Conrad, and their castle escorts were coming fast now, the beat of their horses' hooves resounding on Okliv's ancient cobblestone. They couldn't learn that I was here. Taurus would kill me if he saw me. I was certain of it. With mere seconds to go before they thundered past, I yanked Zan behind the hedge and threw myself into his arms, using him like a shield so that even if the branches did not hide me, his body would. Zan stared down at me in astonished alarm as I huddled against him, using the pinpricks of blood I could feel beating up from bramble scratches to cast a feverish spell. We are not here. We are unseen. Despite the thorns and the awkwardness of being so intimately clasped in a strange girl's arms, Zan did not attempt to disentangle himself from me until the riders were long out of sight. Slowly, I regained enough of my sense to lift my wary gaze to his. My spell waned to a whisper and died on my lips as he searched my face with a new awareness, confounded and cautious, as if I'd transformed from damsel to dragon in front of his eyes. Zan asked quietly, "Anything you want to tell me now?" "Yes," I answered, surprising us both. Then, in sudden panic, I gave him a swift kick to the shin and a hard shove from the hedge and tore out the other way, too fast for him to follow. And that is the end of chapter 13. 12. 13's the next chapter. Okay.